Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this.
Hey Soul Tribe, today's episode is an interview with Courtney Starkey. It's really funny how I came across Courtney. I remember I had posted a picture of one of Michael Newton's books that I was reading, and through Instagram Courtney commented on it, and I was like, oh, I wonder who this is. And I remember clicking into her profile. I started following her. I realized that she was also doing hypnosis, and then I started kind of like following her posts. I was like, oh, really interesting what she's doing and her projects. And I kept thinking to myself that I wanted to eventually get somebody on the podcast that I could interview about all that stuff that I really liked. I know Lorraine is into hypnosis, but I'm like really, really into past life and life between lives hypnosis. So I was pushing for that kind of guest on the podcast. And I continued to talk to Lorraine about wanting to find somebody. We didn't know who to get. But then I kept going, oh, this girl, I have to ask Courtney, I have to ask this girl. And I kept kind of pushing it off. Until, one day I finally contacted her, and she was the perfect guest to have on for the podcast about past life and life between lives, hypnosis, regression, because she's just amazing. Like, we loved talking to her. Was so much fun. And also, it's like she's our new BFF. Like, we totally vibed with her. She was so outgoing and so fun to talk about, and she has a bunch of already experience with helping people through hypnosis. She has a lot of really cool projects going on. She seems to be very busy with them, so she has a lot going on, but they're all kind of building up and gaining momentum now, it seems like. But I started following her on YouTube. I have her on my Instagram, and Lori and I are actually signed up for her class to learn to do the hypnosis script to help people via hypnosis, which she's teaching. If anybody's interested, I'm pretty sure she has a few spots left. She's doing limited because she's testing it out for the first time. But Lauren and I are so excited to do that in August with her, and I think she's a perfect person to teach us. She has a very similar approach to this in the way that she kind of adapts it to what she thinks flows energetically better for the individual, for the soul, and for the person. And Lorena and I are like that with teaching Akashic Records, so we think it's the perfect person to teach us, and we're so excited about it. But also, we're so excited for you guys to listen to this episode, because she has just so much to share with us, and it was really interesting. And I think that by hearing the interview, you can hear how well we vibed with her and how much we like talking to her, to the point where we're definitely going to have her on again. So if there's any questions or things that you'd want to ask her, don't hesitate to kind of send us over the questions or what you would want her to talk about. We can have her on again. And we're going to eventually work on something with her to do more episodes, because she just vibes very well with us and we love her. So guys, enjoy the interview with Courtney, and I hope you absorb all the positive energy and all the amazing things we talk about, because we had fun with this episode. We really did. We're here with Courtney Starkey.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
And you're a past life and in between lives hypnotherapist.
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you study hypnotherapy first and then get into those specific?
All right. So shall we go through a little bit of the training, a summary? So the way that I actually got started was I started off as a client, and it was a past life regression client. And I had read Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss, and my hypnotherapist in Hawaii, she had trained with him. And so she is the person that I worked with first. And I really was helped a lot by those sessions. And so my very first training was also with Dr. Brian Weiss in past life regression. But then I started a book club here in Northern Virginia, and my book club members introduced me to Dolores Cannon and QHHT and Dr. Michael Newton and LBL. And so when they started to introduce me to these other styles of hypnosis that go even beyond, like way beyond past lives, but also incorporate past lives, I became really curious about those teachings and eventually got trained in both of those styles of hypnosis. So I've already done level 2 for QHHT. I'm signed up for level 3 QHHT in October. Wish me luck. Hopefully the class happens.
What's 3?
It's just where it's very, very structured. If you are able to achieve level 3, you need to submit 125 documented sessions from being a level 2. And then you also have to submit a fully video recorded session that you're facilitating. So they want to see that you really are bringing the level that they find to be acceptable to call yourself a level 3. So that's coming. And then I also, back in 2016, trained with the Newton Institute and Life Between Lives, or LBL hypnosis. And they are also very structured in who they allow to become an LBL hypnotherapist. And so as part of your training, you have to do additional past life regression training as well as become a certified hypnotherapist. And so I took that a step further and took an additional class and became a master hypnotherapist. So I really, really love hypnosis. And I'm a doctoral student right now in integral and transpersonal psychology, with a focus for me. My research is on hypnotherapy. So, so yeah, I really love learning about it. And it's a passion of mine because it helped me so much personally. And so I feel very called to help others with this same method.
So you did already 120 sessions at least.
I'm getting there. I think I did a count recently, and it's either right under 125 or right above, but I'm like right there in the zone. And I still have until I think the 1st of October to finish. So where I get to focus is go through all of the previous documentation and the recordings, and then put it all into the session notes to submit the 125 in a very clean way, the notebook that they can go through pretty easily.
Oh my God, I would love to jump in your brain and like hear the stories, like, you know?
They're really amazing. And so one thing that's been very interesting for me is that I've noticed that I don't read about spirituality that much anymore. And I'll even try, like a client will recommend a book to me and feel so strongly about it, and I'll try to read it, but I find that I'm just so much more interested in what's happening in the sessions that are in front of me on, a nearly daily basis, that I feel so satisfied by those, that the reading for me just doesn't even compare. It's kind of like if a client said, here's this really great piece of chocolate cake that you should have, and I'm like, I'm eating cake every day of the week, like I don't need another piece of cake. Yeah,
that makes so much sense what you're saying. Because I feel the same way with, like, now that I've started over a year ago with Akashic record readings, the same thing. Like, I'm finding it hard to sit down with a book and read and like ingest information. It's like maybe that search or quest for knowledge is coming through your work and the people you're working with.
That's right. It's satisfying that itch. And I think I do suspect also that part of it is that our souls want us to be fresh for the sessions rather than in any way colored by what we maybe have recently read about. So we can be there purely for the Akashic record reading or for the hypnosis session and just be with that client instead of consciously or subconsciously going back to what we had just read about and how it might compare or contrast.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I love that all those books you named, I ate all those books up. Right. All of them. I mean, not Dolores. I don't know if Dolores has a book, but I watched her a few times on Gaia TV, which I love Gaia TV.
Yes.
But
that could be its own addiction for sure.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. But that's how I found you. I had posted a picture on my Insta of one of the Michael Newton books, and then you commented, and I'm like, oh, who is this? Click it. I'm like, oh, she's a hypnotherapist. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to follow her.
Wow.
And I started liking your post, and I kept telling my sister, Lorena, I want somebody on our podcast to talk about not just hypnosis, but like past life and in between lives.
Yeah.
And I kept saying it. We kept not like thinking of anybody, not finding anybody. And your post kept popping on my Instagram. And I'm like, Lorena, we got to get this girl. I'm going to get this girl. And then I forgot about it. And then, and then I don't know. Then you'd pop up again on my Instagram.
Right.
And then
just like this little reminder.
Yeah. Remember, I'm here. And it was funny because when we coordinated to do the interview, you sent me the podcast that you had done before the interview. And I was like multitasking and listening to it in the background kind of while I was giving my daughter breakfast. And she like goes to stand up in her seat to eat, which she can easily fall. So I hurry up to go get her. And by hurrying up, I don't calculate my feet right. I stubbed my toe so bad. Like I've said every curse word in English and Spanish I could think of. I cursed so much. And then literally in the interview, must have been 2 minutes after I finished stubbing my toe, you talk about stubbing your toe in the podcast, saying that it's also love. And I'm like, oh my God, that's not a coincidence.
Right.
So
right. I know things like that happen all the time where there's so many synchronicities where I think that our souls are constantly amusing themselves whenever they have something like that happen. And then also when we start following each other on Instagram, I imagine our souls just like high-fiving each other and being like, it's going to happen. They're going to chat.
It'd be like, send another Instagram post. She's not getting it.
Right. Well, so I think that it's all about timing too, because you know how recently my soul, I've been really quiet about certain things for a while now. And so just a week and a half ago, my soul was like, no more. You got to start talking. You got to let me start to talk to other people. And I'm like, oh gosh, okay. And so it's been really interesting where you then said, hey, let's do a podcast. And then the person that you were listening to that first podcast where I talk about stubbing the toe, she and I actually just did a second interview on Monday, so a few days ago. So it's very interesting that as soon as I let my soul start to speak, the other people are like, can we get a piece of this? So
yeah. Now that you're talking, can we talk with you?
Yeah, exactly.
I also watched, so I watched it on YouTube. It's Ansel Speaks.
Ansel, yeah. Good job.
I watched it on YouTube, which I didn't subscribe. I have to subscribe, so I'm going to be keeping up to date with all the videos you're putting every week.
Yeah, I'm going to
2 a week, right?
Yes, 2 per week. Because Ansel, what he had me do was sit down and we filmed me and Ansel filmed 22 videos all at once. I mean, they're broken up. So over the course of 11 weeks, 2 videos will be coming out each week. And it was a 7-hour, like maybe 7.5 hours filming session. And I just told Ansel, I was like, the Courtney version of this is not going to be able to sit here and talk for 7 hours. You're going to have to give me soul energy. And he was like, no problem. That's why I'm here. And it wasn't even that hard, which is kind of amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna butcher the name. Ansel?
Ansel, no, you nailed it. You did a good job.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Who he is, so people understand, because they may not know.
I know, right? And they're probably like, does this girl have a split personality? Like, maybe, but they're both pretty nice. So I guess it's like double your pleasure. No, I don't. So, okay. So I think that most of us believe in the idea that we have a soul, right? And so it's funny because you think of this pie and it starts to narrow. It's like, okay, most of us think that we have a soul, and then the pie narrows a little bit. It's like, and some of us realize that we can connect with the soul. Yeah. So maybe the person would call that intuition or prayer or meditation or whatever it may be. And then the pie shrinks a little bit more. And then people realize, oh, you can actively communicate with your soul. Yeah. And then the pie shrinks a little bit more. And then there's some that are like, oh, you can actually channel your soul. So invite your soul to borrow your vocal cords and then speak directly through them. And so I wouldn't have even thought of me being able to channel at all ever, period, except for in the LBL style hypnosis and in the QHHT style hypnosis, when you're receiving your training, you also have the benefit of receiving those types of sessions because your classmates need to practice on you just as you're practicing on them. And so, in both of those styles of hypnosis, you invite the soul to borrow your vocal cords and speak directly through them. And I got my LBL training and my QHHT level 2 training within the same 2 weeks. And so I was able to do that a couple of times within the same 2 weeks. And it was a really formative experience for me to connect in that way. And so then as I receive sessions throughout the years, it'll happen on occasion. And so that was the only reason that I even knew this was something I could do, was because of those hypnotherapy sessions. But I'm finding as I facilitate those sessions, it's actually far easier than people realize. So hopefully we're expanding the pie piece, the
Yep.
fraction of people who realize they can do that, and it's not even that challenging. It's just relaxing and opening up to it and inviting it to happen,
Totally.
and then allowing it to happen.
And let's just explain that on top of all of that you explained, our souls have a name that's their name. It's not going to be our name. It's a particular name that soul carries just forever because it's the soul. And so you were able to tap in and get that name.
Well, gosh, that's a really good question. So it's interesting. Every soul is different, just like every person is different. The soul has a different personality. It's sometimes very different from the person too. And each soul has its own personality that can be very different from the others. And so some souls will say, like, just call me soul, because it's helpful to have a name just for ease of communication. So I'm able to say, like, client's name and then soul's name, and it's very easy to distinguish between the two. And so the soul will say, like, oh, just call me soul. And then other times they'll say, like, oh, this is going to be tough for human vocal cords to pronounce. Can I just give you a nickname?
Yeah.
And then other times they've got a soul name that they like to go by, that maybe that's the soul that's more specific to that person. But then as they expand into their teammates, which is more like a soul collective, they might have a different name. So there are a lot of different versions that can come up, but usually they like to stick to one name just for ease of communication during the sessions.
So interesting.
Yeah.
I remember when I found out that the souls had a name, like, never thought about that. This was many years ago when I was doing my level 3 Akashic Records, which is like it's a level to be able to teach Akashic Records. And we had this really, really long meditation. At some point, we were supposed to take like a stairs going up and encounter our soul or a guide or somebody. And I ended up encountering my soul, and I even got a name and everything. And I was like so excited.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty cool experience. And I was like, that's so cool. You can get a name. I never knew.
I know, right? And it's what I love about this work, and clearly the same with what you're also training in, is that as soon as you unlock one possibility that you didn't previously realize was possible, it so begins to open up all of the other things that you begin to realize, oh, well, maybe that's possible, and maybe that's possible. And then you realize at some point, okay, so all the things are possible. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is something we're kind of like seeing now more so, because for me it was very hard to connect to the Akashic Records and to be able to channel information. And some people find it way easier. Like for Lucia, it was way simpler, and it was very much like instant for her.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we're teaching and helping people through the process, it's interesting to see like how some people also are going through like maybe what I went through, or just not trusting themselves, because I think a lot of it's just they don't trust the information that's coming through. So maybe what advice would you give to somebody that's kind of struggling with just connecting? Like they know they're connecting,
Mm-hmm.
they feel it, but they're just not getting past that trust,
Yeah. There are a couple of things that are coming to mind because there's so many different approaches for how to handle it. The first one is whenever I do my version of the hypnosis induction, I always invite the client to, from their heart, send out an invitation or a request to their spirit friends. So whether it's their soul or their guides or just the universe in general or their soul group members, the invitation from their heart is, I am open and I am ready for the loving wisdom, the healing energy, the helpful guidance that you would like to share with me? And so what that does is, not only does it give permission to our spirit friends, our team, because we have free will. So if we're blocking, subconsciously, they'll honor that we're blocking. But if we give them permission, they really like to receive that. But then I think also it gives the client themselves this subconscious permission and a pep talk where they are saying, I am open and I am ready. And then I also make sure that I say a lot of nice things about what they are opening up to and what they are ready for. It's loving wisdom.
Yeah.
It's
Unconditional
healing
love.
energy. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because sometimes people get a little bit nervous about what are they going to find in there. And so yeah, it's just reminding them this is very loving, this is very gentle. I mean, yeah, you could be in for a little bit of a wild ride, but there's always a silver lining that is at the end of it.
I think the Akashic Records always say it in a really good way. They say that they know how much you can handle. They're never going to give you more than you cannot handle.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's a very, very good point. And so, people, I've noticed as they have more and more hypnosis sessions, they begin to trust the universe so much more and they begin to trust themselves so much more. And I actually was just working with one of my Hawaii clients, and she had her first session and her most recent session like 5 years ago. And so it's been a big gap between session number one and session number two. But her first session stood out to me so clearly because the universe kept bringing in this scene from a Native American ritual. And she was, talking about that there was this creepy baby there. And you wouldn't normally think like babies can be creepy. This one was especially creepy. And she was like, I don't really want to be here. Let's leave that scene. And I'm like, this is your session, of course. Let's go. Let's get out of there. But then her Native American grandfather came in and was like, you really do need to go back and experience that again. And so she went back, she tried to experience it, and she was like, no, 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 no. Came out again. Native American grandfather comes back in again. He says, really, it would be a benefit to go in and experience it. So the third time she goes in and she said, okay, I'm not going to leave. I'm really going to face this. And the baby, as soon as there was this firm, I really am going to face this in the client's heart, the baby just dematerialized and just went away. And so he kept trying to show her the key is facing your fears and they will go away and they will not seem nearly as bad as what you thought they were. So there's also this element of in the hypnosis sessions and a lot of spiritual healing that when you really face it, that thing that you used to be afraid of actually isn't that big of a deal and has a very healing outcome. Yeah. So facing it really does help a lot. And that leads me to my second answer about how can we help someone who is consciously or subconsciously blocking themselves from a really magical experience. And that's just speaking directly with a lot of love and compassion to the facet of themselves that is doing the blocking. So usually, sometimes it's the mind, sometimes it's the heart, sometimes it's an element of themselves outside of that. And you just say with a lot of love, a lot of compassion, what is it? Like, what are you concerned about here? And then talk through that and then say, well, what if we can find a way to, in a really healthy and happy way, protect that client so that this concern you have, it will be fine. And that part of them is just like, oh yeah, I mean, if we can protect them in a happy, healthy way, yeah, let's just go forward. So that's another way to approach it.
Do you find that most of the issues that get us stuck in this life are from another one, or do you find that they're just from this one and it's just kind of attached to another one somehow? Or do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and that's a really good question. It's usually an interesting mix where sometimes it is from the current life, and it could be even a recent thing. Maybe it's from childhood, but we tend to have patterns. So if there is something that came up in childhood, probably it's some version of repeating a pattern from a past life. And so that's one of the reasons that past life exploration is so interesting, is that whenever you heal whatever happened in that one past life, that can then ripple out and help you with feeling better in your current life. And I honestly think that everything is happening now. So I feel like if we heal in the past life, it not only helps our current life, the person who's having the session, but it probably helps other past lives where that pattern has come up And then if you read a book and you realize something amazing, just that epiphany that you've had probably, I think, ripples back out into the future and in the past and helps those versions of yourself with their own epiphanies that they're bound to have. So it's very interesting. I say just heal in all areas and then it'll
Yeah.
ripple out and help all of you.
Yeah, definitely. Like
Yeah.
heal in whatever way is like calling to you, and that could be
Yeah.
different. There's layers. That's like we always say to our students, and even on the podcast. It's like it's like an onion. You're peeling away a layer, and there's something underneath, and it
Yeah.
could be something from the past, something now.
Yeah.
But past lives are fascinating to me because I start to get some, like maybe probably 6 months into doing Akashic records for other people, I started to actually see past life stuff come up. And it's interesting because for us, we're only really able to bring it up if someone's asked a question, or if someone's dealing with something or an issue or struggle related to that past life. Otherwise, it's very difficult for the Akashic records. At least that's our experience, right?
Yeah.
But it's fascinating that you can just tap into that. Like, that's so cool. Like, how does it work exactly? Like, someone comes to you with a problem, just so people can understand your process, how it works.
Sure. And so it's interesting because sometimes people will have their sessions because there is something that they want to heal or release. And then sometimes people have sessions and they're doing just fine. It's more that they have a block, like there's a certain area in their life where they're like, I know that I've got a block in my career or in, this certain thing. So they're doing really well, but they want to go even further than they're already going. And so this answer applies no matter if they're like, whew, not doing so good today, or if they're like, no, I'm doing great, but I just want to be doing amazing. and so, yeah, when it comes to past lives, it's interesting how, and how we can all get hurt and we hold on to that hurt. It's very similar with past lives too, where even though we have done healing, whenever we leave that past life and go into the spirit realm and have our healing, I think there is a part of our soul that's like, yeah, I feel healed, but I really would rather not do that again. Like if you are in a car accident and your body heals from that car accident, you probably still drive safer,
Yeah.
even though your body has healed. And so going into the past lives, for me, it feels like you're getting another opportunity to heal. And you're also getting that conscious reminder of the healing has happened. Like it's okay. The healing has happened and we're giving you another round of the healing. So yeah, past lives are really fascinating, and how it all works with the current life. And
So cool.
mhm,
It's so healing. Like,
yeah.
I've seen things that are super interesting, at least through Akashic records. I'd be fascinated to do that, like to try that myself. Maybe I'll try that one day with you. So
Wonderful.
you do that remotely? Is that
I
something
was about
like,
to say we should segue to the online
yeah, like
question.
maybe that's a good thing. Let's get into that now. Like, how does that work,
Sure.
especially now with everything that's going on, like coronavirus and everything? How do you work with clients now?
Yeah, so one thing, and you know how they always say that you create your own reality. And so luckily, it seems like my very optimistic nature is working out because even with the coronavirus, I'm like, things are getting even better. What? And so the big thing that's been a positive shift for me is that I was always able to offer online hypnosis sessions. And I always wanted people to be more open to that because then it means that the geographic limitations are just immediately gone. And now that people are realizing, oh my gosh, I especially want to have a hypnosis session because the world has gotten very interesting and I'd really investigate more about what's going on here. And so they want hypnosis sessions and they're realizing that that the internet, Zoom, is a very viable way of having those sessions. And even if somebody isn't yet having a hypnosis session, we're all starting to get more comfortable with Zoom and that type of platform. So the technology, the fear of technology element is falling away. And then also realizing how well we can communicate. Like, I really feel like I'm hanging out with you two. This is
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
nice. And so people realize, oh my gosh, like I didn't have to commute. I didn't have to shower. I didn't have to I'm able,
True
I'm
though.
able to just, yeah, I'm able to just have a very relaxing day, sit down, press a button, and then boom, we're here together and very connected and having a
Yeah.
very nice time. And so this has been such a great experience for people realizing, oh my goodness, you can absolutely have these one-on-one sessions. I've also been developing since last November. I'm really grateful to my soul, who's given me a lot of intuitive insights about getting things prepared online months in advance of this. But I also offer group hypnosis sessions live online. And so that's another thing where people, I think they realize you can do group hypnosis and it can be very healing. But this is another element. You can also do group hypnosis online and have really amazing experiences. So whether it's one-on-one or if it is a group event, that's something that I'm really comfortable with facilitating and have actually been doing so for a very long time. I think that there's only one style that I'm trained in at this point that still says, like, please don't offer these online. I don't know if they've updated their policy. I suspect that they have not. But LBL recently, they were like, yeah, guys, previously
Oh
we
my
were
God,
like,
it's my
maybe not.
dream to get LBL.
Yeah,
I need to
yeah.
get it done with you now.
Yeah, they made it official. They sent out the email. They were
That's
like,
awesome.
yeah, it's funny because they were like, we know some of you have already been doing this, but I'm like, I just call it a 4-hour session. What do you mean?
Oh no.
So they were like, we know some of you have already been doing this. And it's funny because they're like, can those of you who have already been doing this, can you help those who are not as familiar with it know what it's like and if there are best practices? And what's funny is it genuinely is not that different than an in-person session. Some of the best one-on-one sessions I've ever facilitated have been over Zoom. And the main thing is just make sure that the person's laptop is plugged in.
Yeah. What happens if it like cuts off and like the person stays in hypnosis forever?
Right. Well, gosh, I guess it just depends on what stage of the hypnosis session they're in. No, I'm just kidding. No. So that's a really good question too, because a lot of people will ask me things like, what if I have to pee? Or, even if it's an in-person session, they're worried about some sort of distraction or disruption happening in the session. And so it could be the computer turns off, or it could be that they just have to pee. It's really not that big of a deal. So you really do just open your eyes, take care of whatever you need to take care of. And then whenever the reconnection happens, whether it's you're coming back from the bathroom or you get the computer back online. And by the way, bathroom breaks happen way more frequently than the computer issues happen. The computer issues are very, very rare. Because
You would think that like the body would respect, like, hey, there's a spiritual thing going on. Let me like stop my movements and like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite though, where the body is just like, oh, this is a great release. And so because there's this releasing energy that's coming through, they actually have to pee more often than they normally would have to. And sometimes my body vibes, and whether it's online or in person, my body vibes really strongly with the clients' bodies, even in the group sessions. Like the last group session I hosted, I was like, at least one of you went in really deeply, really quickly. And then the person wrote and he was like, I'm pretty sure that was me. And then another group session, I was like, guys, this has never happened before, but I need to pee. And so I knew that at least one of them was really going through a very nice release. And so, yeah, it's sometimes you release through crying, sometimes it's laughter, sometimes it's yawning, other times you got to pee.
Yeah. So what's the group thing like that you have already dates and hours marked and then everybody has to be online at the time?
Yeah. So we had our most recent group hypnosis session on May 2nd. And then if you're a member of the spiritual hypnosis membership that I started, then our next session is May 17th. But the next public session, if you're not a group hypnosis member that's available, we're going to be connecting with angels and fairies and star seeds, and not just those that you might be connected with, but also finding out more if you are one of those. And a lot of us are. And a lot of us actually don't even have to pick just one. A lot of us, I like to joke that my soul gets around. And so, yeah, so there's a lot of connection to a lot of, it's a bit of an overachieving soul, I think. But yeah, so that one will be in late June 27th. So there are always hypnosis opportunities that are coming up. And then also what I've done for the spiritual hypnosis members, I always record all of the guided live online hypnosis sessions. And so if somebody has missed one of the live sessions, it's not a big deal. They can go back and re-experience it, no problem, whenever their schedule permits.
That's so cool. Definitely
Yeah.
share. We'll share some of that info with our listeners, because I think a lot of the people that listen, this is like right down their alley. So
Yeah.
this would be cool.
Well, so let's just say that, because we were talking about LBL, and we're assuming that everybody knows what that is. That's life between lives, hypnotic regression. Would you call it?
Well, I would probably just say hypnosis.
Hypnosis.
And then,
Okay.
yeah, because I always think, when I think regression, I think going into the past, and then sometimes people will do a progression and going into the future. And then LBL, what that is that's a deep exploration of your soul and the spirit realm. So that could be going into, again, I believe everything is happening now, but it's easy to speak about things chronologically. And so let's say that you're in the spirit realm and you go to, quote, the next life viewing station. And that's where your soul is making the decision to be you. And so that's a really informative space in the spirit realm to find out, like, why, of all of the beings that your soul could elect to go into and have an experience with, why are you the perfect one that your soul was like, that one? I want that one. And so it's very informative regarding your purpose and your soul contracts and your life path. And yeah. So, and then what you can also, it's super, super interesting. And then you can also hang out with your soul group members and find out who's in your soul group. You can go to your favorite recreation areas in the spirit realm. Where do you like to have fun? You can go to your classroom. You can go to the library, which clearly you two are familiar with. And yeah, there's so many different elements to explore. And then I would say one of the most powerful experiences is really just deeply connecting with yourself and your soul, where you integrate the soul energy more deeply into this, quote unquote, human version of yourself. And then really just feel that energy, really feel who and what you really are. And that's a life-changing experience in itself, just to feel your soul energy more strongly.
Yeah, that was like the feeling I got every time I came out of an Akashic Records reading. I can imagine like what you do, it's even stronger. But that's the kind of feeling it's hard to explain to somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like understanding and believing and like having the sense of peace at where you're at, and understanding yourself. And it's like you feel your body differently. Your mind feels different. It's so strange to explain, but
it'd be great to go and be like, so why did you pick somebody with a big butt? Seriously,
I love it.
Are you trying to slow me down somehow?
No way. So I also am endowed in the derriere. And so what's funny, and Michael Newton, he has a great story about this, where for the longest time he felt very drawn to nurses with brown hair and white uniforms. And he knew for a long time this was a thing that somehow he was drawn to. And then eventually he was going through a magazine and he sees a picture of a nurse in the white uniform and the brown hair. And he's like, oh my gosh, this image again. And he thought, I'm just going to have to go to the hospital and see like what is going on here. And he met he walked in. And
that's right. He says that in the book. Yes.
Yeah. And so I tell you this because my husband, he and I met. I was living in Los Angeles. He was living in Northern Virginia. He and I met just like 3 times during this one week where we were hanging out with a mutual friend. And it was during this time of year, so it was still a little bit chilly. And so I had on longer pants. And whenever I left and went back to Los Angeles, and he and I started our courtship over email and the phone, he told me that he was thinking, gosh, I really hope that she has muscular legs, because he didn't know, because I had on pants the whole time. He hit the jackpot. I am very muscular. And like he told me that, and I was like, Lord, is he gonna be in for a treat?
That's so funny.
Yeah, so your juicy booty may be the exact thing.
You never know.
Your partners are like, oh, that's the perfect.
You should see my partner's like this tall, and I'm like this tall. Like he's huge, he's Dutch, and he's really tall, and I'm this little tiny South American person next to him. It's ridiculous.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
It's funny, but there definitely would be a reason behind all of that, I think.
Yeah.
Like that's even part of your contract, right? Like your body, the body you incarnate into. There's
Mhm.
always a reason for everything.
Yeah, if for no other reason than we got to use the phrase juicy booty in a spiritual conversation. So, yeah.
Oh my god. Too good. Too good. That's funny. But so yeah, you were talking about like going and like meeting back up with the group and all that stuff. Like that's super cool. And like you were saying, it's like an awakening, right? And it
Yeah.
makes you be more present in life. And I love that. Like I think that I think that if everybody in the world got a past life regression, there'd be no crime. There'd be
Right.
no murder, there would be
Right.
no raping and all this stuff. Like it should be like, why are we obligating children to like have to study physics? No, you gotta get a past life regression
Yeah.
when you turn 18, and then like that's the obligate. Like why are we obligating people to do more things like this so we can all ensure that our society is well balanced? You
Yeah,
know?
I know it's like Soul 101. You got to take that class. Yeah,
Yeah.
so for me, the more that I learn through client sessions and then through my own sessions, I continue to have sessions just because they are so helpful for me and I continue to grow with each and every one of them. So the more that I learn, the more that I realize we're probably never going to have peace on earth, and that's a good thing because that would then rob those souls who are like, wait a second, I haven't done poverty yet. Wait, don't take poverty off the table. I haven't gotten to do it yet. And
Yeah.
so it's helpful for all of those elements to still remain available for the souls that are going and having those experiences.
It's
That
really
makes
hard to
so much
understand it from like a
sense.
human mind place, right? And the Keshe
Yeah.
Records always says, never judge, never criticize. If you've raped before and you've murdered before and you're
Yep.
going to be raped, you're going to be murdered. And it sounds awful to the human brain, but they're all like very valuable life experiences for the soul. And that's why we have obviously struggles and traumas that we're
Yeah.
carrying. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm working on editing my own book right now, which I'm going to release on my birthday, which is June
Ooh.
22nd. I know. And so one of the passages that I read recently from my own book is going through the different reasons that somebody might block their experience. And one of them is the idea that they've done bad things. And so I write in there, spoiler alert, we have all done bad things. But then also, that's why you do the investigation and you find out what an incredible loving and wise soul you are. And so it becomes much harder to judge yourself or to judge other people or to judge the circumstances of the world when you find out that there are these, not so virtuous things that happen, and there is a purpose and there are really loving souls that are looking for different experiences. That's where the soul contracts come in so importantly, where it's like, I don't want to punch you in the eye in the next life, but if you need to be punched in the eye, okay, fine.
I'm
I'll
gonna
be the
be,
one that does it.
yeah. That reminds me of like
Yeah.
what the Akashic record says. Like the person that hurt you the most is the person on the other side that loves you the most.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine being in somebody's soul group and saying like, whew, all right, I'll do that. And then also you would have to then agree to go into a brain that would be structured in a way that could take those actions. So
Yeah.
that's
Oh my God.
probably a
Yes.
challenging brain to go into, which is really remarkable that a soul would agree to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you
It's so
think about it
complex.
that way, like in our human, like kind of rationalization of like, well, everything would have to line up perfectly for that person to be able to have that impulse to do that thing. And then you'd have to also maybe make them mad in some way. So it's like everything coordinating for that to happen so you can learn a lesson. Like,
Yeah.
whoa.
I
Like,
know. I always think of the universe as the ultimate project manager. And then
yeah.
there's this master spreadsheet that's out there, and they're like, okay, we need to line up these two cells right now. Whew,
Totally.
okay, nailed it. But then, you know how we were talking earlier about Lucia, you followed me on Instagram, and that my post would come up and you would be reminded, oh, right, I want to interview that girl. And then you would forget about it. And then I post again, you're like, oh, right, I need to interview that girl.
Yeah. To get like lazy, like, oh, I have to type and explain who I am and what I do. I'll do it later. Like,
No, it was perfect. And so I feel like the universe also does that, where they're like, oh, okay, well, here's your reminder. Oh, okay, we need to do another reminder. Okay, here's your second reminder. And so
totally.
they'll make sure we have the experience, even if it's like the eighth time, then
But it's
it'll
funny
have.
because like you got called to,
my post called your attention and you commented and I'm like, oh, who's this? Let me follow you and stalk you.
Thank you. I love it.
And then I ended up contacting you. It's like almost like, yeah, you said this like great, massive, like they're just putting all the things together and you're you have free will, but they're still still sending you signs and you can listen to them or you can go, whatever. Right.
I know. Yeah. I highly recommend that we listen to the signs because that whatever eventually ends up where the universe is like yelling, like, you must listen now. You must listen now.
Yeah. I mean, even people that we've interviewed that have had like near-death experiences because they weren't listening to messages and or listening to like their soul path of doing a specific thing or helping people or helping themselves.
I mean, look at what they did to me. Like I guess I was supposed to come here and read the Akashic Records or do some sort of healing work of some sort. And I was like, after my parents moved back to Uruguay, I was a very angry teenager. I was very mad at the world. I was even like at 16, I was already getting drunk. Like I was bad. I was a very bad child. My poor parents.
Me too. No wonder we like each other.
Yeah.
I was also naughty. Like
maybe
I wasn't
maybe
drinking.
we were drinking together, like astrally or something.
No, so I was drunk on rage. That was my drug of choice. I was mean.
When I got my first reading, like, my soul was like, "Why are you so angry with the world?" And I had never been asked that in that way. I went, I don't know. I am angry with everybody all the time. Why am I angry with everybody all the time?
Well, so when you got that question and then got to explore the answer, how did you shift as a result of having that exchange, that dialogue?
I think it was just, I think the first step was like, it's almost like the step of acceptance, like that step of, oh, I am an angry person. I am getting mad for no reason. And why am I doing that? Yeah. Whereas if my parents or my sister said it, I'd be like, shut up.
Like, you want to talk about anger? Here's some for you.
Oh man. But the reason why I got to the place where I ended up in that chair getting a reading was because they sent me 3 years of constant dream premonitions where I would see aviation accidents and then I would see them happen on the news. And the further the time passed by that I didn't do anything about it, the more dreams that came, the worse the dreams that came.
Wow.
But I took it like I was in the wrong place and I took it the wrong way. And I was like, I'm seeing death and I'm making these people die somehow by dreaming. And then so I just took it totally wrong.
Yeah, no pressure. There's like, I'll just never sleep again. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so then after 3 years, I told my mom, like, if this happens one more time, I'm letting you know that I'm going to kill myself. I'm done. Like,
were you being serious?
No, I was being serious. I was breaking down, like, and I worked as a ticketing agent for like flights. So I would find out when I was ticketing flights for people as a job. And then I was seeing in my dreams people die from those airplanes that I was probably ticketing at some point.
You were also studying to be a pilot.
Yeah, that's when I was becoming at the same time I was becoming a private pilot. So it was
really weird. So I was like, maybe you're just dreaming these things because it's like an underlying fear you have or something, but it wasn't.
But I wasn't scared of flying at all.
Yeah, that's
what happened.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing that I want to point out, I don't know if people are consciously noticing this, but I'm definitely noticing it. So, Lorena, I don't know about your background, but clearly Lucy and I have had some anger management issues, and and we're genuinely happy people. Like, we're genuinely happy people now. And so this, I think, gosh, if there was a before and after, like, this is a really good example of how dramatically a person can shift from being pretty cranky to being really, really genuinely happy and having a good time with life.
Yeah. For me, it wasn't anger. I was always more the passive type of, like, I never was told like what to do. I always just did my homework and I always try to like please everybody. Or like the not treating myself well enough and like not loving myself. And this is directly linked with my spiritual path, like to finally love myself and to listen to myself and listen to what felt right. And there is a definite, like, it's day and night as well for me. Like, I don't feel like the same person at all.
Congratulations. That's really beautiful. And yeah, this spiritual work is a tremendous act of self-love and self-care.
Totally.
Oh,
yeah.
That's beautiful.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, we went off course there a little bit.
Yeah, we did. We had a bunch of questions on our list here.
Yeah. Trust the path. Trust the path.
Yeah. So, okay. So we spoke about past life regression and between lives.
Mm-hmm.
Is there one that you find people prefer to do, or do I think you have to do past before you do it between, right?
So there is a formula, and I always defer to my clients. Actually, so this summer I'm going to start teaching what I'm calling soul empowering hypnosis, and I've noticed that there are these tried and true formulas that are amazing and very effective. And I've also noticed that a lot of times the souls will want to come in and provide some guidance for the client that is something that's a bit outside of what's in the script or in the formula of these tried and true sessions. And so I've noticed that when we go organically with the flow of what is happening in the session, and we give that soul that sense of agency of like, yeah, like, and sometimes the soul is bringing up things that the client wasn't even asking about, but the soul knows, hey, there's this foundational element that we need to work on here before we even start to effectively address those questions that the client is bringing up. So yeah, I want to really start to help people with the soul empowering hypnosis. And so when we mentioned that there is this formula, especially for the Newton LVLs, and that is traditionally that you go into a memory from when you're really little, and then into the womb, and then into the past lives, and then to the final day of that life, and then into the spirit realm. And then, so it's one of those things where there is this amazing formula, but sometimes the souls are just, or I'm sorry, the client's souls are taking them right into the spirit realm out of the gate. And so if that client really is curious about past lives, I'll say to them, hey, souls are taking clients directly into the spirit realm. Do you want me to try to proactively weave a past life into that experience? And if the client's really interested in past lives, they're like, yeah, do that if you can. And so it's really just a matter of the soul bringing up a topic. And I'm like, might that be related to a past life? Yeah. And then it's like, oh, yes. Okay. Might we go back into that past life? And then the client's like, yeah, I got to see one. And so there are these ways of weaving it all together so that everyone's happy. But I have learned that following the guidance of the soul is really nice. And so what's funny is when I was getting that training in QHHT and LBL, I also had clients. I was in Ireland when I was doing my level 2 QHHT training. And so I had all these clients ready for their sessions in Ireland who are more familiar with Brian Weiss and past lives. And so as soon as I got my LBL and my QHHT level 2 training, the client's souls, even though the clients didn't necessarily know it, the souls knew that I was ready for spirit realm exploration and for more of what the soul wanted to bring to the table, as opposed to what's, just within the past lives. And so these souls, even without the client's knowledge, were bringing this new stuff to the table where I was like, well, thank God I trained in that 4 days ago, because like this, and the souls know, they know. And so they start bringing it up. So yeah, so the past lives, I would say, that's a really beautiful exploration of what has happened in those past lives and those incarnations, sometimes on Earth, sometimes elsewhere. And the LBL complements that very, very nicely for an even deeper exploration of who you are as a soul.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So I have a bit of a question here. Is it possible to do a hypnosis session? For example, if Lorena and I wanted to do one together, and we wanted to kind of come together and just experience this plan that we work together and we're doing this thing, would we be able to do one with you where we can both together at the same time do the hypnosis and figure out like really cool details about what we're doing and why we decided to do it and things like that?
This is such an interesting question. And you are only the second person to ask me that, but you're the second person in like 2 months. You know,
but I'm the coolest. I'm the coolest
I love it. We are cut from the same cloth. We both have high levels of confidence. Yes. And so I'm curious about why the universe is bringing this up again, because this is something that I've not yet done, and I'm not totally sure how it would function. But it is one of those things where I'm just like, okay, universe, if you're bringing something up again, kind of like we were talking about earlier, the universe might whisper something to you and then eventually it is yelling at you. And it's like, oh, are we getting a slightly louder whisper now? So I think it's probably something that I should try to facilitate, but I have not done that yet. But I would be curious to see how it goes. That would be very interesting.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
We can be your guinea pigs if you want.
I love it. Right. Well, it's kind of the perfect situation too, because I'm being so frank where I'm like, I have no idea how it would go.
Yeah, like Lucy and I started doing dual readings together probably
Oh my God, it's been
a
so
couple
cool.
months ago. And we're like, we've never, I've always channeled for somebody, or, there's always one person in front of me. And you just kind of open one person's at a time.
Yeah.
So we're like, why don't we try? Because we have like very different.
I kept saying, Lorena, we need to both read the same person at the same time. And Lorena's like, yeah, maybe. And I kept coming back to me. And then we did an interview with a girl who's very intuitive, and she goes, you guys need to read together. Your two energies work well together. And I was like, Lorena, I told you.
It was pretty cool. Yeah.
And so we did like 3 test sessions with different people, and it went really well.
So interesting, the dynamic.
Yeah. Oh my
and
gosh.
just the channeled information coming, because I'm, very different channeler than Lucia. So just seeing her process and she seeing my process and how all of that information just came together and kind of complemented.
I'm not very good with like dealing with people's emotions. Be like, oh, you're sad. Okay, just get over it. Let's move on to the next thing. And Lorena's like, oh, you feel this way and that. And me, I'm like, let's get things done and blah, 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 blah. Like,
I'm very balancing.
Yeah, but you do accept the feelings and stuff. And I wouldn't say that you like shut it down, but I do think.
I think I'm just comparing myself to you and saying that, you're very respective and very perceptive of the emotions of what the person needs to hear and how they need to hear it. Whereas I come out like with fierce need to say things and just throw, like, it's almost like I vomited.
sometimes it'll, if the person needs to hear it with a lot of urgency, that'll come through urgent for me. But yeah, it always seems very like, smooth and like very feely, because that's just who I am. That's the way it kind of just channels through me.
It's really nice. That sounds like a very complimentary energy.
Very
just
cool.
like, okay, if you need the more nurturing elements, Lorena's here. Lucia's like, would you like to just know all of it right now? Boom.
Damn.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know us already.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting facilitating the hypnosis sessions too, because I also, when I'm facilitating, for the most part, I have my eyes closed and I'm going with the flow of what is happening. And I'm somewhat in the experience with them. And it's funny because sometimes these things will come out of my mouth and I'm like, whoa, that wasn't me. And sometimes they're a little pushier and sometimes they're very gentle. And so it's this nice, like, just vibing with whatever it is that will be of benefit to them in that moment. So I love that the two of you have that way of bringing a well-rounded experience to them.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to ask, oh, sorry, Lorena, go ahead.
I just want to say one thing before we go on. Just, I think things are changing. Like modalities and the way we all work is changing. So if that message keeps coming to you, I would say follow it for sure.
Right? Yeah. And one of the things that's been so great about experiencing hypnosis is that in those sessions, like I was saying, we've all done kind of naughty things and sometimes things that are a little bit overwhelming come into the sessions. And so you learn that bravery is your friend, that when you move forward, there's always something very beneficial on the other side of it. And so when you learn to have that courage regularly in your hypnosis sessions, there's almost no way that can't bleed out into your current life where you're like, well, maybe I should be braver about this. And so even though I'm like, I have no idea how this would go, it's just like, well, Courtney, you've practiced bravery a lot of times. You might as well just practice it again and see how it goes.
Totally.
Yeah. We did a whole episode about something. It sounds like that. It's like coming out of your comfort zone, right? Mm-hmm. And that if you stay in your comfort zone, you're just going to stay where you are and you're not going to progress. Whereas coming out of it, you're pushing, and then a lot of great things come from that, right?
Yes. Yeah. Always. And then also I love too that it then opens you up to new possibilities, new expansion of the comfort zone that you wouldn't have even realized was possible if you had stayed tightly where you originally were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amen.
I remember I was going to ask. I was going to ask you, so like the Akashic Records talks about the difference between like the personality you have, the way your brain functions, the way you think. That's not your soul. That's not how your soul sees things. That's not how your soul feels it. And so they always show me, sometimes I'll be able to see the soul's personality compared to the person that I have that I'm reading in front of me. Yeah. Were you able to kind of encounter your soul's personality, and what kind of did you take from that?
So this is one of my favorite elements. I'll talk about me specifically in just a second, but one of my favorite elements of facilitating the sessions is that more often than not every time, but more often than not, when the person is inviting their soul to borrow their vocal cords, almost always the person is staying consciously aware during the sessions. Even you know how we were saying things are changing, and they really are changing. And so previously in sessions, the conscious self was taking a break and stepping aside. And now during sessions, the veil is thinning. There's not that much of a gap between our quote unquote human selves. I'm not sure that like we're actually human, you know what I mean? And so that's why I'm like air quotes human. Yeah. I'm like, come on. Like, I know you're an angel. I know like it's one of those things. Yeah. And so we have this thinning of the veil. And so the person, the client is staying consciously present and aware during the sessions 9.9 times out of 10. And so when the soul is borrowing the vocal cords, if the client wants to then borrow them back and chime in, like I can actually almost always, not every time, almost always tell the difference between the client speaking and the soul speaking, even if they've made no announcement of like who is talking, because the soul has such different energy. Like sometimes I'll have clients that have, moderate to thicker accents. And then the soul, for whatever reason, has way less of an accent, which I have no idea how to explain that or why that's the pattern. But yeah, it's interesting because sometimes it's the voice, like the cadence, sometimes it's the personality. Usually souls are traditionally very sassy in like a good humored way, very funny, and they like wordplay. They enjoy puns a lot. I think they're being very clever. And so you start to pick up on these personalities of the souls. And then for me, whenever I'm channeling my soul, he's more tough love than I am. It's a lot of love, but he's also very Lucia style, where it's very just like, let me
I
just
like him
tell
already.
You. Yeah. And so for me, because I was like, like a lot of anger and rage as a kid, and now I'm like, oh, Courtney, just be nice and peaceful and loving. And Ansel's like, and tell the truth. And this is the like, and we'll just like bring it out. So yeah, there is a bit of a difference, but I've noticed that in the last couple of months, as I've been channeling Ansel more and more and more, that I'm finding that that's more assertive in a good way. Like it's materializing or manifesting itself as more confidence in me, so that when I'm speaking, I'm not I'm not second guessing myself the way that I was, or I'm not tiptoeing around things the way that I was. And now I'm just having more confidence, not only in my soul and in myself, but I'm also having more confidence in those who I'm engaging with, who I'm speaking with. Where previously I was like, oh gosh, like I don't want to offend them. And also like, give them more credit. Like they can hear it. Like they're adaptable. They're resilient. Just speak. It's fine. So a lot of confidence has elevated since the channeling as well.
That's so
I think
great.
my image of like the soul personality, I don't know if they would call it personality, but I always thought I was like, oh, he's la la la, and they're so sweet and everything's beautiful. And that was my image before I got into this 12 years ago. And then the first encounter I had with my soul, she was like very firm with me. And like, and I was like, she's a little bit of a bitch with me right now.
Yeah,
like, what? I didn't expect her to talk to me like that. And that was like my taking. I was like, oh man. And then I remember leaving like the session, the Akashic Record session, thinking she could have been a little bit nicer. But now that I look back, I'm like, she was trying to knock me back into like, I was totally off path. I was angry. And she was telling me basically like, you need to get on path. Like you're totally off. The things you planned are going to happen if you don't. So she had to be firm with me, obviously. So, but that was my first time encountering, whoa, the personality of my soul isn't the same as me.
Right. Very tough love in that they care about us so much. And I also, I'm going to put healers on a pedestal here, but I think that when our mission, part of our purpose of being here on this earth is to be a healer, they care so much that we move forward in our purpose. And if we are off path, then they're just like, we cannot have this person. We aren't just hurting ourselves when we're off path. We're also hurting everybody else that we agreed to help, or that we are not helping because we're staying stuck in those conditions. So I think they're like, we've got to rattle this person out of being stuck in that condition so that they can move forward.
Totally.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I never looked at it that way. So very, very, very true, I think. And that makes sense a lot of readings.
Outside, you probably agreed to help all these people, and now you're totally off track, and now you're not just messing up your own plan, you're messing up maybe 10, 20, 30, hundreds of people's other plan.
Probably hundreds or more, because then you also have to think about the ripple effect of if you help one person and they become happier and more loving and more and wiser, then they inevitably also help other people. And then especially with our work, I don't know how many healers you work with, but I work with a lot of healers. And so I realize that I'm helping them to awaken to their paths. And so it's then a healer who needs to get their own little rattling sometimes it's gentle, and then they're able to help their hundreds or more people, and so on.
Very true.
Yeah,
it's all a ripple effect, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So amazing
that it is.
We went off topic, but we talked about almost everything just in our own different way. I mean, what's the biggest, that was something that we didn't ask yet. What's the biggest or the most common struggle that you find people come to you with? Is there a common struggle, you think?
I would say, so it's interesting. I've been really, really lucky in that the clients who tend to be drawn to me aren't necessarily in the struggle phase of their development. A lot of times they're in the, I'm doing well, but I'm ready to move forward, and I'm ready to launch from good to great, or I'm ready to launch from great to amazing. And so for me, the most common question that they are wondering about is they really want to understand and move toward their ultimate life's purpose. Like, they know that they're here for a reason. They know that they're meant to help. They want to know more about that and how to best go about achieving that or moving forward with that. So it's a lot of, I mean, there are always a bunch of different types of questions, but that one is the most common, where it's so beautiful. They really just want to know, like, why are they here and how are they meant to help others and be what they are meant to be.
Yeah, be on their most aligned soul path.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably your mission then. Your mission is probably to help people focus that part of their life. You probably agreed to that, right? You're like, I'm going to do the hypnosis. I'm going to do it mostly for this, right?
Right. Yeah. I've noticed over time, the pattern is that I tend to be helping those who are meant to help others. So I help the helpers, I heal the healers, that kind of thing.
That makes sense that you're here then.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes me feel, I feel so good working with them. Like, it's amazing working with these people. They are some of the coolest, most loving, brilliant people that you could ever hope to meet. And so I feel really lucky. Like, every time a client comes in, I feel kind of starstruck, where I'm like, oh my God, they're so cool. And they're just really amazing, loving people.
And then you must learn so much from that too, because if you think about it, if they're so advanced in their healing and they're helping so many people, you, by helping them, can obtain so much knowledge, I imagine.
Oh yeah, like I was saying, that I mean, I wish I was still reading books the way that I used to, but I'm learning so much from the actual sessions where there's new wisdom that's coming in. And what's funny too is their souls also care about my soul. And sometimes during the sessions, their soul will say, we have a message for Courtney. I'm like, oh, here it comes. And it's always the same type of message. A lot of times they're like, you need to finish your book. And they are going to be so happy on June 22nd. I'm just going to self-publish it, because for the longest time I was like, well, I need to do it this way and work with a publisher. Yeah. And I'm just like, no rules. Like, just make it as good as it can be and put it out there and just let the universe do what it's meant to do. But yeah, a lot of times the souls are like, Courtney, you need to move forward on this or with that. And it's always in this direction of spreading this message, helping people. And so again, in their way, they're reciprocating, where it's a healer helping a healer. So yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. That is so cool. Good for you. I love it.
Thank you.
I think I'm feeling we're going to be working together soon.
Yeah, apparently in a very unique way. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah, I love it.
I wasn't wrong to be like, oh, I gotta message her. Yeah. For me, the most amazing part was the stubbing toe thing.
Yeah.
Like, what is the probability of you? And I don't remember the last time I stubbed my toe. I'm not kidding. It must have been years ago. I barely ever stubbed my toe. And then it happened, and then you talk about it, and I'm like, she's a witch.
I do. Yeah, I definitely think that the three of us here, all good witches.
Yeah.
Totally good witches. And this happens so often where that's why I've learned just let the things come out. Even if I'm like, why did I say that? I'm just like, whatever, it was supposed to come out. Things like that happen all the time. Like the most recent group hypnosis session that I hosted online. I can't even remember why I brought this up as an example. I think someone was asking about how to create a reality where low vibrational energy just doesn't even come into this high vibe reality that you've created. And so what I was saying before the session, and usually I try not to talk that much before the session or offer that many examples before the session, because I really want the wisdom to come in from the soul themselves rather than me coloring it. But I just felt compelled to give this example where I was like, well, you can create this reality that's very high vibe and doesn't have these lower frequencies, but then maybe you're meant to actually shift within yourself so that if you have something lower vibrationally happening around you, that you're so high vibe individually that it just doesn't even matter to you. So for example, maybe you've got a neighbor that constantly plays loud music and it's been annoying you and it's been annoying you. As soon as you raise your vibration, either the neighbor's going to move or they're going to stop playing the music, or you start to just enjoy your own little dance party and you've got your personal DJ that's over there cranking out this music and you're just having a good time. And so like this is the example that came up, and during that session, and I had the client, she emailed me later and she was like, yeah, so during this really peaceful, really spiritual hypnosis session, my neighbor starts jamming their music really loudly. And she said, because you gave me that example, I could only laugh. I couldn't get annoyed. It was funny. And so stuff like that happens all the time. And I know that it's our spirit friends just like having a good time, amusing themselves with all these synchronicities that they line up for each other.
Oh my God, yeah.
That's so cool.
That reminds me of my parents. My parents had a really loud neighbor for 10 years.
I was just thinking about that. Oh my God.
We even had people from the municipality in Uruguay go to the rooms to measure the, what's it called, decibeles?
Decibels. Yeah, the decibels of the sound.
The decibels of the sound. And these guys had a connection with the municipality because they were told when the guy with the thing was there, and they alerted on the music when the guy was there.
Or turn it off directly.
Or turn it off.
Wow. By the way, decibels sounds way cooler in Spanish than it does in English. I'm like, was it decibeles?
Decibeles.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, that was way prettier.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I swear to God that my brain just went to that too when she was talking about the neighbor.
Really?
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. I was like, oh, where was that advice when mom and dad were killing themselves? Oh.
Well, yeah, and then I try to follow that advice myself where I still have these things that I have a knee-jerk reaction to that annoy me. And then I'm like, wait a second, Courtney, you know better. You know better. And it's like, okay, time to just jam out. And by the way, I never stubbed my toe, and I stubbed my toe maybe a week and a half ago. And I handled it really well. I was so proud of myself.
Oh my God, I didn't handle it well at all. I cursed in English and in Spanish. I cursed in both. Like,
I'm really jealous that you have more than one language that you can curse in, because I enjoy expletives.
Spanish. Spanish is the best language to curse. Like the best language to curse. Like English has nothing on Spanish cursing. Like you get it out of your system so nicely.
I love it.
So true.
I'll have to educate myself.
We can share some with you later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Muy bien. Gracias.
You should listen to some of these words. Some are about your sister. Some are about birds. It's ridiculous.
I'm just like, my heart's like, oh, the poor birds. I'm realizing that the middle finger is flipping the bird, and I'm like, what do these birds do?
When we're not recording, I'll let you. I'll give you. I'll say one.
Okay.
I love it.
But oh my gosh, we've already taken up more than an hour of your time.
Oh, it's fine. It's been a good time.
Yeah,
it was really nice talking to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for everything. But let everybody know what services you offer and where they can find you and all that stuff.
We'll put all the stuff in the show notes as well, but maybe if you just share it now, that'd be great.
Yeah, show notes is brilliant because my soul just wants to help people and has created all of these things. And so I'm very lucky that my husband is very tech savvy. He's a software engineer. So anytime I'm like, hey, can you get me this website and then redirect it to this page? He's like, yeah, no problem. So I recently got spiritualhypnosismembership.com. That's where people can sign up for the membership and then enjoy at least once a month a live online group hypnosis session. Every other month, I actually facilitate a bonus live online group hypnosis session for people. And that one, I think that's actually my favorite of everything that I've created, because it helps people with really consistently and regularly experiencing spiritual hypnosis. Kind of like if you were to join a gym membership, that it helps you with more actively participating in that which is very good for you. And so it helps people to make a lot of progress really quickly and enjoyably. So that's the spiritualhypnosismembership.com. Then I also recently, and this is brought to you by Ansel, created the Spiritual Hypnosis Book Club. And the way that that came about is I was going to be facilitating a hypnosis session with a client that I'd already worked with. And we were like, let's play around with this session and see what happens. And as we were taking our pee break right before the session, I got a message from my soul, and he was like, you need to facilitate this session as me. So invite me to borrow your vocal cords and facilitate that way. And I was just like, whoa, that's new.
Wow.
Okay, I'll try it. And she was like, yeah, let's try. Let's see what happens. And so what was happening during that session was so full of wisdom that was just top-notch wisdom. And I thought, I don't think we're supposed to keep this to ourselves. I think we're supposed to share this with the world. And she was like, yeah, this is pretty good. And I'm like, so I guess I'll figure out, how am I supposed to share this with the world? And so what we started doing is having every other week these soul channeling sessions, and then turning them into what we're calling a living book. And so at the first week of every month, we deposit these 2 sessions, the audio recordings and also the written transcripts, into the book club membership online portal, so that those in the membership, they get these twice monthly sessions delivered the first week of every month. And so that one has been really exciting. And that's also why I've been channeling so much lately, because of this idea that really happened behind my back. I had no idea that was coming. And then what I'm also developing that I mentioned that I'll be facilitating for the very first time this summer is the soul. Oh, okay. And so the other one is spiritualhypnosisbookclub.com.
Okay.
And this one is soulempoweringhypnosis.com. And it's really teaching the practitioners of hypnosis how to very comfortably go with the flow and the organic path that the session is taking, rather than feeling like, oh gosh, I have to stay within the confines of this script or I'm doing it wrong. It's like, no. Like, start to get comfortable with how the sessions really blossom whenever you're facilitating them as they are meant to progress. And then also inviting, so I'm going to invite 8 practitioners and 8 clients to sign up for this, so that they can then practice with each other. So the client is getting sessions and the practitioner is getting to practice sessions, and they're both setting the intention of, let's just really honor the soul. So that's why it's soulempoweringhypnosis.com. Let's really empower the soul here and see what blossoms, because we're doing that.
That's amazing. So with the soul empowering hypnosis, do you need to have previous experience to be able to be facilitated by you?
That's a really good question. I think not. And the reason for that is that I'm really just going to trust the universe that those high level, really loving, really kind, very positive people who just want to learn. I feel like, because the very first hypnosis session I ever facilitated, and this isn't bragging, this was just the universe doing something nice for me so it could boost my confidence. But the very first session I ever facilitated was for a person who had tried multiple times to go into a past life and couldn't. And we went into one pretty easily. And so that was my very first session out of the gate. So I have a firsthand understanding of that someone who has a lot of experience brings a lot to the table, but someone who has no experience can also bring a lot to the table. So I'm not going to restrict it unless, again, I'm very go with the flow. If the universe is like, okay, let me, give you this when you have no restrictions, then I might change it. But I have a feeling that the universe is going to bring the perfect 16 people together.
For sure.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah. And I have other things I've created, but I could go on for a while. So we'll just put it in the show notes, the different ways. Like, I've got my YouTube channel, and I've got,
we'll share all of that.
Yeah. The Spiritual Hypnosis Live Facebook group. And so there are all these different resources, but I could go on.
Just share those with us after we get off the call, and then I'll put those in the show notes for sure, so people can make sure they stay in contact with you, like on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah. You don't have a character limit for your show notes, right? No.
There is, but
Oh,
we'll work it
gosh.
in. We'll work it in. Don't worry.
Okay. Oh, and then the last thing that I should say for sure, it's funny because I'm so excited about all of these things that I've been developing as of late. But for 6 years now, I've been facilitating the one-on-one hypnosis sessions. So I should definitely mention
Yes.
that my website is payitforwardhypnosis.com. And I named it that because hypnosis has helped me so much as a client. I'm like, I got to learn how to do this to help other people. So I'm paying it forward. So payitforwardhypnosis.com is how you will book a session with me to work together directly one-on-one.
Oh my
And
gosh,
they can
yes.
do it on Zoom at a distance.
Yes, absolutely. And feel like we're in the same room together. I feel like the main difference is that it's just like air hugs or virtual hugs instead of real hugs at the end of the session. So that's really the primary difference.
Yeah. No, and I think a lot of people that listen to us here know that we all, I mean, I would say 99% of our readings are virtual too. And it makes no difference whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So energetically, I think as long as the person's open to it, it goes well.
Right. Yeah. You know how we were saying once you open to the possibility of one thing, it expands more and more. And so it's like, well, what if people are realizing we can connect via the internet just like we would in the same room? And then you start to wonder, well, what about telepathy? Like, what if, because I've had clients start to do that recently where they're like, hey, can I send you a color and see if you get it? And so they're starting to practice with, we don't even need the internet. We're just going to send you things.
Oh, that
It's
happens.
working.
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys you're doing it.
It's really funny you're saying that because I started studying this week remote viewing.
Yep. Yes.
I'm loving
There you
it.
go.
Like
Yes.
I haven't started the practice yet. I've been studying the theory and trying to get it down, but I'm already obsessed with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's so interesting. I'll do that with my cat sometimes, where if we're on a trip and I want to check in with her, I'm just like, okay, let's see how the cat's doing. I'm like, oh, she's napping in her bed. It's fine. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, I need to get into that after Lucia starts because it seems insane.
Have you guys practiced animal communication yet?
No, not personally.
Ooh, let me just plant that seed right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No, I've never tried it. I've always just been more, I think I've been more concentrated on humans. They need more help than animals, but.
Well, but that's the thing. We can get the wisdom from the animals because it came in recently that all animals are light workers and they're these underutilized resources. Yeah. So they have all this wisdom and they're like, are the humans going to start asking us questions anytime? It's like, okay, a few of us will. And then more and more and more.
Totally.
Yeah.
Wow,
Good
thank
advice.
you so much, Courtney. It's been amazing chatting to you. You're so much fun. And I love that, I always say I like making spirituality fun because it doesn't have to be all serious. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh. If it was serious, I think I'd do another gig. So. Yeah,
juicy booty and everything.
Yes. Definitely. No, this has been a blast. Thank you so much.
You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode. And thank you, Courtney, for coming on. We had so much fun chatting with you. Just about everything spiritual. It just went all around amazing. But just the fact that it just goes to show that you don't have to be all serious when you talk about spiritual things. It can be very lighthearted and you can have fun with it. And that's what the spiritual journey is about. It's not all about, always being so serious. And I feel like she showed this amazing side of spirituality, and she works with, so many different kinds of people, and just goes to show how, you need to do it your own way and you need to be your own person. But Lucy and I are so excited because we signed up for her soul empowering hypnosis workshop, which is in August, and we're so excited. I'm not sure if she has any spots left, but we'll definitely link that on the show notes. So make sure you check that out and check out her page and her social media. She's such an amazing person, and I'm sure we're going to have her back on and doing some cool stuff with her. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, if you're not following us on social media, make sure you go to Instagram. Our Instagram handle's at soul_tribe_podcast. We're also on Facebook under Soul Tribe Podcast. And yeah, well, that's all linked on the show notes. So make sure you go follow us.
If you feel called to share this episode with anybody, please do so. That helps us, and it helps us get our message out there to everybody. And we just want to thank you for all your support and everything that you guys do for us. We make this podcast for you guys. So, just getting your feedback and getting your messages is amazing. And we really want to just thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.